Hello everyone and welcome to the Cherry Heart podcast. I'm Sandra and this is episode 127, I think, of my podcast, where I talk about crochet, knitting and sewing mainly. You will be able to find the show notes for this podcast on my blog, which is cherryheart.co.uk, and I shall also link it in the down bar below. You'll also find the timestamps below the video, as well as the chapter links that you can select along the bottom of the video if you're watching on a device. And I don't know, do you ever watch YouTube on your TV? Because I do, and I don't know if you can do the chapter skipping on the TV. Have you ever done that? Can you do it on your TV? I'm pretty sure I can't do it on mine. Anyway, that was aside. You can also find me on Instagram, Sandra Cherry HRT, and elsewhere around the web as Cherry Heart. So how are you? How have you been? How's the new year going with you? It's been busy here, very busy. Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time since I last podcast, although technically at the moment of recording it was only like the week before last, but by the time I actually get this up, it's Friday, so by the time I actually get this up it might drift into another week, but we will see. But yeah, I hope things are well with you. I've brought up my things. I've got most things behind me, so I'm just going to grab my little tray of things and then we can I can tell you what I've been up to. A pretty tray of handmade lovelies. So I think I can't remember where these were last time I spoke to you. I think I had finished one of these. I think. And not the other. So anyway, I have finished the other one if I hadn't before. So I won't talk about these loads in case, because I did talk about it in the last podcast. You know, so I'd either finish them, but at least I did say about it. So I won't go into everything again, but the pattern is Linda Kay's Yummy Mummy Mitts, and it's by Alexandra Brink. The yarn was Coop Knits Soxier in Axinite colourway, and I've held it together with a mohair yarn, which was an Isager yarn. I think it was just called Silk Mohair, and I'm not sure of the colour. But I'll pop all the details in show notes, and if you do want to know anything more about those, then yeah, it's in the last podcast. So I'll move quickly away from those. Yeah, so I've got a finished object to show you. So this wasn't even a work in progress last time. So this is another pair of mitts. So when my sister came round the other day, she'd seen the first pair of mitts I made, which again I featured in the last episode, I think, the white ones with blue stripes and pink cuffs. So she said, oh, they're nice. You know, I would like a pair of those. So I've knit her a pair. So she chose this yarn for her mitts, and this is by Holland Handmade. Lovely Erin. I don't think she is dyeing anymore. Pretty sure she's not. Yeah, so these are just the same as last time. The vanilla mitts the vanilla mitts that I made last time, just a simple vanilla tube, and I put some more lovely labels on from Craft House Magic, and the only difference with these ones is she wanted a thumb hole, so I always just knit mine as just a straight tube, because I just, you know, I pull them up over my hands to keep them warm, or I tuck them back if I need my thumb out. I don't sort of worry about that, but she wanted a thumb hole in hers. So yeah, so I've just got that in. So literally I was knitting, let's take this off so I can show you. I was literally knitting in the round till I got to here, then I knit back and forth for a bit till I thought it looked big enough, and then I just started knitting in the round again, so dead simple. The only thing is, because these ones are, you can sort of see there's a bit of pooling going on. Pooling. Obviously the knitting back and forth for a little bit has sort of changed the pooling a bit. I think it looks okay still though. So yeah, so that's really pretty. And then the cuffs it was actually a Biff Sugar sock set, and I just stole the mini from that just to do a little coordinated cuff to go with them. So yeah, so they are a nice quick make. Although, well, I say that, I knit the first one and I forgot she wanted the thumb hole, so I knit all the way up and I was about to just put the ribbing on, and then I suddenly remembered, oh, I forgot the thumb hole. So I had to sort of rip quite a way back. You know, I mean, it didn't take long, but out of all of the knitting, it was quite a way back to put the thumb hole in. But never mind. So yeah, that's that one. So I think my mitt knitting is probably done for the year. I think 3 pairs of mitts, albeit if one pair is for someone else, I think that's enough to be going along with. But I do like that they are a nice quick project. Yeah, and sort of whizzing round. It doesn't take too long to whip those up. So that was good. So I was showing you last time, so this is a kind of a Christmas tree project. So I was showing you last time that I'd done all these lovely embroideries from Nikki at the Stitchery. So they came in an advent calendar quite a few years ago now, maybe 2019, 2020. So I've done them all. And I was on my last one. I won't show you them all again because they were in the last episode if you want to see them all. But I think I'd got up to the Nutcracker, but I hadn't started him yet. So I have now finished my little Nutcracker soldier. So he's done. Quite happy with that. But I am quite glad I left him to last as well. I do think he was perhaps a little bit more trickier. He had a lot more of this silvery thread stuff going on, but I think I got on okay. Quite happy with him. And I was talking about what I was going to do with them afterwards, and I was saying that I quite like the idea of doing a handmade Christmas tree. So that is a whole load of handmade just handmade decorations on like a small tree. A real tree would be nice. But, you know, I'm not actually hand making a tree is the point. I'm hand making the decorations, but I want it to be a kind of a handmade Christmas tree is the theme. So, because I don't actually have that many handmade decorations. I do have a few. I've got a few mini knitted stockings and like a crocheted Christmas pudding. So yeah, I've got a few bits, but really not that much. So I thought it would be nice to do that as a project and then make a different themed decoration or a different type of decoration each month. Loosely, I might not get something done for every month, but you know, that's the loose idea. So this, I was working on these last year in December, and so this will work as my January project because I've carried them over and finished them in January. So I was debating whether to turn them into like stuffed hearts and hang them on the tree that way, or to put them in like smaller hoops and you know, put a bit of ribbon or something on and do them that way. So I've decided to go for the smaller hoops. So I have ordered up my smaller hoop. So this is the kind of effect we're going to get. That's the size. So this is what I'm actually making it on. I guess this is like a 5-inch, but these are 3-inch. That was the smallest I could find, because I wanted this nice sort of more goldy top, just in case that ends up being visible, which I think it might, because I'm going to cover the outside band, the outside wooden band, and then I'm going to have some kind of hanging thing here with possibly like a bow, but I'm thinking you still might see some of that, so I thought it'd be nicer if that was gold. And so yeah, I found these 3-inch. I don't think I could go much smaller than that because of the design anyway. It's not going to fit in anything much smaller than that, is it? So I think that's a good size. So I've got one of those for each of my little stitched design. I should have another one in here. Yeah, here we go, because there's 5 in total. So I've got all those, and I'm going to, well, I've ordered, I'm going to cover this outside edge with Liberty fabric. So I have ordered that as well, and that came yesterday, so that's quite exciting. So I can move these along to the next stage. So I'll just show you the Liberty I've got. I brought out my stash of Liberty that I have so far. So this is what I've got so far. So these top ones on here I ordered as a fabric bundle, a sort of like, you know, a pre-selected bundle from Alice Caroline last year, which I ordered them with no purpose in mind. I just really, really liked them. So I've got those and they're sitting there, but I think I have a purpose now. And then these ones are things I've got at other times, just ordered through the years for just other bits of quilting projects. So some of those have got things cut out of them, and some of them haven't actually been touched yet. And I also have this quite big wodge at the bottom, which was actually a dress. So my daughter, when she was very young, I guess maybe 2, 3, had this beautiful sort of quite old-fashioned dress, basically. And I didn't know about Liberty fabric then, but I just saw it in the shop and thought that is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to get her that dress. Yes, so anyway, so I salvaged the fabric because I loved it. So I've got quite a nice stash there, which I now know is the Bertie fabric. So it has got some, it's still got the hem on, and it's got a few little pleats in it as well, that are still all in the fabric. But I could still get a nice good amount of usable fabric out of that. So that's good. So quite a lot of my ideas for my Christmas decorations are actually Liberty based. So I knew I wanted to put Liberty on these once I'd decided on that as an idea. I want to do some nice Liberty stars that I saw on Jules of So Suits Violet's Vlogmas videos. So I want to make up a selection of those. And I've also had on my to-do list for ages some Liberty, what's the word? So baubles, but you stick on little scraps of fabric. What's that called when you stick little scraps of things on? Like collage, but decoupage, that type of thing. Anyway, which my sister mentioned to me. So when I made my Alice Caroline handpiece quilt, couple of years ago now, all the little tiny offcuts, I kept every little tiny offcut, because I thought she'd said that's what she was going to do with hers, and she was going to make these baubles. So I was like, oh, that's a good idea, I'll do that as well. So I need to actually put that into action. So that's 3 Liberty projects for a start. So I've pulled it all out ready. But anyway, I didn't have anything much in the reddy or greeny, more sort of Christmassy theme, so I did order some more. So I've got a nice green there. This one's got red, green and pink, which I thought would work quite well. A very reddy based one. And then this one is a little bit darker than I was imagining, and the leaves are a little bit more blue based than I was imagining. But I was thinking this would look nice on with the darker red thread of the Darla horse. Well, it still would look nice. I'm just not sure how well it looks next to the other sort of bright red. I don't know how that looks. Maybe it's alright. And then I thought maybe a pink in, because I like pink on a tree. So I've got this one I picked up just because I really liked it and the colours. And then I've got some pink selections. That's got pink and green and a paler one. So basically just because I liked them. So I will choose some of those to go on the outside of those. So now that that's come, now this component's come, I can get that project finished, and that will be my January / into February project. Yeah, so that's good. So other than that, I think I'm now on to new projects. So yes, so this is the yarn that I used for my sister's mitts. This is the Holland handmade yarn. I think it's a one-of-a-kind colourway, by the way. I don't think it actually had a colourway, and like I say, I don't think she's dyeing anymore. But isn't it pretty? Isn't that gorgeous? It started out actually, I don't know what my sister will think of this, but it actually started out a bit darker at the beginning and then it's gone lighter. So they don't 100% match, so I hope that's all right. But yeah, so this is sort of well into the slight paler area now. Anyway, the reason I'm showing you that is because I've just been making up a load of samples. Again, this is very married over with last year's podcast. The last episode of the podcast that I recorded. So in that one I was talking about this beautiful new yarn I had from Woolland Forest, beautiful Daki, dyed up these wonderful indigo things just before Christmas, and I ordered this beautiful cotton, indigo dyed cotton yarn. So I've been thinking about what I've wanted to do with that. I knew I wanted to make a nice light summery shawl, so I've started up some sampling in this yarn because I wanted to try different stitch pattern ideas. I could have just gone on Ravelry and looked for a shawl, I do know. You know, I could have just done that. But I always sort of had in my mind that I would just pick a nice stitch pattern that I like and just do it very simple, like literally pick the stitch pattern, make a triangle shawl, and then have some kind of edging on it, probably just tassels. Maybe something else if I'm moved to do it, but probably just tassels. Because I just wanted it to be nice and simple and really enjoyable sort of project. And I didn't, you know, the kind of thing where you can get the stitch pattern and you don't have to think about it. So I didn't really want to be sort of trying to read a pattern and worrying about if I had the right amount of yarn that would fit and it would get, you know, the number of pattern repeats they said. I thought I'd just keep it as simple as I can so that I can, yeah, that was just my thinking. Anyway, so I've been trying up stitch patterns. Now, the first one I tried was this one. And by the way, how pretty does this yarn look in crochet? Actually, I'll pick another one because that one I broke it off and then tried again. But just look how pretty is that? It always reminds me of this kind of colours when it's sort of this mottled yarn like this. It always reminds me of like Monet's water lilies. Yes, anyway, so I made this one, and as you can see, I think on the camera, there's a sort of line. Hang on, the board. Let's get the board. I made it specifically for this purpose. That's, you know, if you're new here, sorry, that will be gibberish, but I'm always trying to hold things up and point to them. And it's very hard to show you sometimes because I don't have three hands. So I made this kind of board to put things against so I could have it like this and talk about it. So let's use the board. Oh, it looks like a pair of knickers. Yeah, so there's kind of a line there. So I made a small sample and then I came back to it and added a bit more to it. So that's sort of how the yarn's faded as it's, you know, as I've got further into it, into the ball. Anyway, so yes, so this is the first one that I tried. This was from a Japanese book. It's actually for a small little waistcoat, but I quite like the pattern of that. And I don't know if you can see, I don't know how much it's showing up on here. Let's try holding it up again so the background shows through. I don't know if you can see that there's these treble stitches. Oh, it's a nightmare, isn't it? Right, these, I'll have to stick it down. This is just quilting wadding on here, so it's not sticky as such, but it does kind of, you know, like when you put your fabric on it, it kind of, not exactly sticks, but it kind of sticks a bit. So I was hoping that would work for the crochet. Yeah, so it's got like these treble stitches going down, which when you hold it up to the light, it kind of looks a little bit griddy. And I didn't like that sort of square regimentedness that you could see through it. Of course, on the camera, I can't see it at all, so it sounds like I'm talking utter gibberish. but I could see it in real life. So I thought I like that, but I don't like that regimented straightness to it, the griddiness to it. So I shall try some others. So I've tried a few different things. So this one I really like the pattern, but the shape is wrong. So the triangle is too steep. I want a nice long, a very graduated triangle, because I want the length without having to have the bulk of a full triangle. So it needs to be a very shallow triangle, almost like a sort of crescent shaped shawl, but a triangle one. So this one, the side's going up too steep. That's like 90 degrees. That would be no good for what I want. What was this one? This was only a little bit, so I think this was just a bit nothingy. I don't know if you can see. It's nice enough, but it was just a little bit too open and nothing going on that one. So that was rejected. What else have I got? Oh, this one. This I thought might be quite good, because I thought it might look like little flowers, which I do quite like that. But again, it's got that steep sides of the triangles. I mean, that's got to be like 90-degree angle. That's no good. I need it much more open than that. So that didn't work. This one I quite liked. See if we can get it on the board. I might actually add another couple of rows to this just to check this isn't a serious contender. But I don't think so. So you can see how it's sort of curving. The bottom is very open. There's quite a lot of meshiness to it. I don't know what to see, because it won't stay open. It needs blocking. But of course, with a cotton yarn, how much blocking am I going to get that's going to stay in place when it's a shawl? So that was the reason for rejecting this, because these kind of nice open areas, it's basically mesh pattern, so just loops connected to other loops, but it's got a little picot in where the loops connect, and then it's got some shells at intervals every so often. So you've got a kind of mesh section, shells, mesh, shells, mesh. And that's how it goes on. So I think if this was blocked, it would be a too steep triangle, and it will scrunch up, so it might not be so much of a problem, but then you can't really see any of the pattern. So I just think I don't think it's going to hang how I want it to hang when it's made up. But I am going to add another sort of mesh section and shells on, just to see, just to check. I don't want to go for that one because I do like it. And then I've got these ones I was a bit more excited about, I suppose, or I thought were better choices. So there's this one, which is essentially, I don't know how much of this you can actually see the stitch patterns. It's essentially a sort of shell, what do they call it, like a fan and V-stitch type pattern. So you make kind of a row of V-stitches and then you're working. These are quite spaced out shells. You've basically got two V-stitches into each V-stitch to make a kind of shell. So it's kind of light, because I want it to be quite light and open, but not too open. So that kind of works. I quite like it. It does make quite a, it's a bit more fill in, you know, like a flat uniform filled in the same. I wanted it to be more sort of, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't want just mesh. I do want some filled in sections, but I don't want it all filled in. I just want sections of filled in bits separated out by a more open design. So I like that, but it's a little too uniform is what I'm trying to say. And then, so I kept returning back to that first bit that I showed you. So I thought, well, I'll try working it up again, but instead of just having the trebles, which will line up on top of each other and give that very angular look, I shall try turning those into V-stitches and see if that works. You know, just loses that sort of griddy shape a bit. So I did that, and again, I really like this, but you see how shallow this triangle is? That's exactly the shape I want. It's just going to get longer and longer and longer before it gets really wide. So this is definitely the best shape. So that's how it looks with the triangles instead of just the treble stitches. Again, I don't know how much of this you can actually pick up on the camera. Let's hold it up. Let's hold it up against my top that's dark. So again, it does give it quite a uniform filled in feel, though. You don't, the shells are only every other row and they're spaced out, so they're offset, but I don't know how well that picks up. So all in all, it's a very long-winded way and a lot of chatter and a lot of showing you stuff that you probably can't see what on earth I'm talking about. Just to go, I think the very first one might be the goer anyway. I still don't love that down angular, you know, that sort of the way it makes a grid thing. But it's exactly right. See, as well, it doesn't, where's this one? So this mesh one, when I put, you know, if you think I'm going to wear it that way, it's going to get pulled that way. What I was saying about those mesh just looped bits, they just collapse together and you can't see any of the design. But this kind of, like, you know, when you pull it out that way, it still kind of holds its design quite nicely. And it just doesn't all collapse down to just look like, you know, just a nothingness. So I really love that about it as well. Yeah, kind of, if I put it in front of my dress so you can kind of see the holes poke through. I think I just keep coming back to that. My mind keeps coming back to that. So I think that will probably be the winner. I'm just going to let the little creature in. Look who's come to see us. No, I didn't catch it. Got to wait for him to settle down now, haven't we? If you can hear that click clattering, that's his paws as he wanders around. Yeah, so I think this is probably going to be my winner. I guess the next stage will be wind up my yarn, my lovely indigo yarn, and just try, you know, have a little start and just see if I like how that's looking. And if not, it'll be back to the drawing board, I guess. So just one last thing to talk about, and that's a project I'm about to start. I'm preparing to start. So this time I've been inspired by Vlogmas again, but this time by lovely Gaynor of Tales from Cuckoo Land, and she was knitting on her vlog a colourwork jumper, and she showed it quite a few times at different stages as, you know, she was going through Vlogmas. And yeah, I just got tempted over time. I saw it once and thought, I like it, but I'm no good at colourwork knitting, I shan't make that. And then I saw it again and thought, I do really like it though, it does look really nice, but I probably can't do it, colourwork knitting. And then she showed it again, and, and so it went on until she sucked me in and I wanted to make it. Now I've got another crappy picture here. Another haunted picture from my toner running out printer. Yeah, that's pointless, isn't it? Let me see if I can find a better picture. I'll put it up here, actually. I'll find it later and put it up here. So this is the thing I'm talking about. Yeah, so Gaynor was making that. And yeah, I just really liked it. So I was looking for yarn. So Gaynor is using a Debbie Bliss yarn. I think it was some sort of Debbie Bliss tweed yarn, fine tweed or something maybe. So I did have a look at that, but they didn't have many colours left in stock. I think they had the blue that Gaynor was using, and the sort of mustardy yellow colour, and I can't remember if they had the other colours or not. But I wanted grey as my background, and I was thinking either like a pink for the patterned like snowflake bit. I don't know what the pattern bit on the white bound, so I wanted to keep the white background. Anyway, so I started looking at other yarns, and there was various different ones I was looking at, and I couldn't decide what was best until I realised I was looking at Flora yarn, and I've actually got, so that white and grey there is Drops Flora yarn. So I thought, well, I've got the grey for the main body that I wanted. I've got the off-white for the background. So all I need is just 2 other balls. And I could make this whole jumper. So I was like, all right, I'm definitely going with that yarn then, because stash busting is fantastic. Working from stash, miracle. So, so I wanted a dark grey for the sort of border. And then for the, I'm going to call them snowflakes, I don't know if that's what they are, but whatever that pattern is, let's say snowflakes, I wanted in a pink. So we ordered 2 colours. There was one that was called, well, there was this one, I can't remember what it was called, some sort of pink it was called. And then there was one called Peachy Pink, which I thought it might just be a nice warm pink, which I will like. It might be too peachy. So I just ordered that as well. And this is how they've come. So initially I thought this would be the one I wanted. It's more like the colour I imagined. And I do really love it. But I do kind of like this as well. And I do think it will look nice with the greys. So now I'm up here, I'm going to pull out some of the greys and the white, and I'm going to put them all together. You know, I'm going to lay them out together and see which I like best. Yeah, but it will be one of those 2. So the colour of this one is, this is colour 20, and I think this was called Peach Pink or Peachy Pink, and this is colour 24, and I can't remember what that was called. And this is colour 04, and I don't know the name of that either. And that was, I'm sure that was the off-white, and I don't know. So anyway, as far as I have got is trying to look at my needles, and I've discovered the only 3.25 needle that I have is a Knit Pro Zings one, which is fine, but I've only got one. I've only got a fixed one, and there's a whole list of needles in this pattern of all different sort of length cables and different sizes and, you know, so on, which is fine because I've mostly got interchangeable sets, so I've got all the different sizes of cable. That's no problem, that's fine. But it turns out I didn't have a 3.25, so I tried swatching up on a 3.5 because I had interchangeables for that, and it wasn't coming out to gauge. The stitches were about right, but the rows, so I knit this, I've been trying to knit it in the round so I got a proper gauge, so I was just ending each row and then just trailing the yarn across the back and going to the front again so I could have every row as knit, because I'm sure I do knit my purl rows tighter than I knit my knit rows. So I was trying to do it that way to get a more accurate representation. So I did that, and like I say, the rows were a mile off, and the, what are you growling at? The stitches were, well, they weren't too bad. Yeah, the stitches were probably fine. But I thought I'll try it on the 3.25 like it says then. And I got fed up with trailing the yarn across the back, so I just knit in a loop, and I don't know if that's the correct way to do a swatch for in the round, because, you know, obviously that's not 10 centimetres, but whatever. I just joined it up and carried on knitting because I was getting a bit fed up with knitting stupid swatches. I don't like knitting swatches, and I know it's worth it and blah blah blah, but yes. So on this one, stitch count is a bit, so I think this one it was just about on or slightly over. This one the stitch count is over what it should be, but the rows are still nowhere near. She wants 40 rows in her 10 centimetres, and I've got like 32 here on the smaller needles, but the stitches are getting too tight together. And this one, I think it was 30 I've got here. So stitches right, rows a mile off, stitches a bit small and rows still a mile off. So I don't know how she's cramming 40 rows into 10 centimetres. I don't think I'm going to hit that gauge at all, to be honest. So I need to decide which of these ones is best to go for. And yeah, I'm not quite sure. I did order some wooden 3.25 ends for my interchangeables, so I might do another bit of swatching up on that, because these are metal just to see if that affects my gauge, because my favourite needles always used to be my Addy Clicks interchangeable set, and they're the sort of like the turbo, so they're metal but they're really high shine, really quick needles, and I love them, my favourite. But I think I probably do get a looser tension on there because I'm going so quick, you know, then the needle, what's the word? The knitting sort of can flow along the needles so quickly, whereas when it kind of grips a little bit more, like on a wooden one, just there's a little bit more friction, there's a little bit more traction. I think I tend to go a bit tighter. So I don't know how that will compare, because these are metal but they're not that high shine. So I don't know. So I might just do a bit more swatching when those needles come. But then I suppose I've got to decide which of those I think is best to go for. And I'm not quite sure. I'm thinking blocking as well, but my feeling is when I block, I tend to, to get the stitches neater, you tend to pull down, so that would make the row count even worse. Like if you pull out and block, it's not going to stay, is it? Because it hangs, it's just automatically going to be drawn down. So anything you do that way is just that's not going to stay, is it? Even with blocking? Really? I don't know. Does anyone know anything about that? Any advice? Any ideas on that? But I don't see how I'm ever going to get 40 rows in. I mean, I could keep going down needle sizes, but then my stitches will be absolutely minuscule, and if I make the pattern to the size it's saying, I just won't get in it because the stitches will be too tiny. And I think it's going to be easier to adjust. It's going to be easier to leave a few rows off the length, for example, if needed, than it is to be faffing around with messing, if the stitch count's messed up. So I think ultimately I will try to achieve the stitch count and just let the rows go hang, basically. The only reason why I'm less sure about that choice is because it's colourwork and it's got this yoke thing in. So, I don't want that to come down too low or anything. I don't know if I can sort of, you know what I mean? Like if my row, say that was 40, but I'm only getting 32 in that space, that means it's going to come down lower, isn't it? So is that going to that might affect the fit. That's the bit that concerns me. I may be worrying unnecessarily. There is there's kind of a give with jumpers, isn't it? We'll see. But yes, any thoughts, any experienced people out there that have any advice to offer on that, thank you in advance, because I think that would be appreciated. Right, so that's it from me. The only incoming goodies was my lovely Liberty that I showed you. No other incoming goodies other than that. Patterns, there's nothing to talk about. I have got something going on in the background, but like I said, it's going to be a while. It takes me forever to do a pattern. Oh, I have got one thing though. The dog jumper. Yes, so dog jumpers. Again, this is from the last episode, so apologies if you are new. This won't make any sense, but I made Bertie a dog jumper, and I just did it with trial and error. I tried a few times, just ripped back until I got something that looked about right. And then I just proceeded with that. And I did write up notes for myself so that I could make another, which I then did, and that was fine. So you guys some of you guys were asking me about pattern. So my initial thought was, yeah, this would be a cool pattern. But then as I started making it, I was realising I have no idea how I would issue this with a pattern and sort of work in the leeway you might possibly need to fit different dogs. Like, assuming you were just talking about a miniature dachshund, I mean, presumably there's a range of sizes that a miniature dachshund can be. Yeah, so I didn't really know, would I need more rows? Would I need more stitches? How's that going to work? And yeah, I don't know. So I thought, I'm just going to leave it because, I've got other things. I need to be working on, so I'll leave that. But then a few of you said, well, actually, if you could just let us have your notes, then we can just sort of do our own trial and error from them, but at least it's a base starting point. So I thought, okay, that's fine, I can do that. So I have written up those notes. Yes, obviously they haven't been tested or tech edited or anything like that, so it's not a pattern in that sense, and you know, no charts, none of the things I would usually put in a pattern, charts and photo tutorials and lots of lovely explanations, because I want, you know, everyone and his wife to be able to have a go at it if they possibly can. So this is just literally me writing out my notes, and I've tried to tidy them up so they aren't too sketchy and notey, but they are, you know, they're not in proper, you know, written pattern. You know, I've used crochet terminology, what's the word? It's just not as formally and officially, you know, done as I would normally do for a pattern. I've kind of shorthanded a little bit. So you're definitely going to need to be you know, have crocheted before, have some experience, so you know what I'm talking about. I did put a few notes at the beginning just to say, you know, when I say this it means this or whatever. So it should make sense if you've crocheted before and, you know, you've made more than a granny square kind of thing, and you know you've made a few things. But yeah, that's very long-winded anyway. But that is out. Well, it's not out, but I have written it up. So I just need to put it up somewhere so you guys can download it, I guess. Ravelry. Yeah, I guess I'll pop it up on Ravelry, and then I can just have a link so you guys can download it. But yeah, so I will try and get that done this coming week, or possibly this week, depending on when this podcast actually goes up. But yeah, I will try and do that for you. I think that's it then. So thanks very much for joining me. Thank you for all your lovely comments and everything on the last podcast and so on. And if you are new here, I hope you enjoyed it. And if anyone watching would like to give me a thumbs up, if you would like to subscribe to watch new content, that would be fantastic. Yeah, and I'll see you next time. I hope you get some lovely, crafty, calm, quiet moments to enjoy. My favourite time. I hope you get some of those too. Okay, bye. This one was Tales from... No, it's not. What is it? Gaynor, what's your podcast called? Jesus, I can't remember. Tales from Cuckoo Land, right? Right. There you are. Look at that. Speak her name and there she is.